served as president of the board at least twice. Joyce also served as president of Friends of Carroll County Public Library and played a key role in the development of the Friends organization and the Battle of the Books. Joyce and her husband are superb gardeners who live on the edge of the Wakefield Valley Park, where Joyce enjoys early morning walks and posts magnificent photos on Facebook of the natural world she sees. Joyce loves to travel, and before COVID, traveled annually to beautiful places all over the earth, including South Africa, New Zealand, Iceland, Antarctica, where Joyce took a dip with the penguins in the Southern Ocean. And we are also joined by Jackie Herron. Jackie, a graduate of McDaniel College and retired teacher, was recruited to work at the U.S. government's top secret site established at McDaniel College during the Cold War. She handled her classified duties for more than 20 years. In addition to her long-standing work as one of the ladies of Lewis Hall that you're going to hear about today, Jackie has been a very active member of the Women's Club of Westminster for 70 years. She has headed up the education committee for the Women's Club for many years and started the Women's Club participation in the National Read Across America, Dr. Seuss Birthday Initiative, which involves reading and delivering books to children in many different classrooms. Jackie remembers kicking off the project here by taking her electric frying pan to the school she visited to cook green eggs and ham for the students. Jackie is also an avid bridge player, and we are thrilled to have both of you here today. Thank you so much for coming out, and I'll give you a little bit of a tip. If you cup your hand around the top of the microphone, I think it helps. Can we have a round of applause for our guests?
Today, especially with my good friend Jackie. Now I'm just going to say a few things and I'm going to give her the mic. First of all, that when Alan Turing was decrypting Nazi communication across the Atlantic, some 11,000 women in this country were breaking enemy code. So Jackie came after all of that, and I knew about the project. Well, for a long time, I was in my role at the college. I was back and started back in '79, and there was a book on my shelf in my office in Harrison House, and that book was The Politics of Lying, Government, Deception, Secrecy, and Power by David Wise, and that was published in 1973. Now, not long after I started my job, and I'm sorry I can't look at all of you, I pulled that book off the shelf. My supervisor came and he spoke to me and said, you know, the college is in this book. And it had like 2 paragraphs, not any more than that said that we had a secret area that was run by the Department of Agriculture, and it was going to be a censorship. If we had, this was during the Cold War, if we had a nuclear event, that area was going to be a place where officials would come in and censor the media, censor all the newspapers, and there was code that was going to do that. So that's how I was told about it, mainly because one of my jobs was media relations. If I had any calls, I had to be careful not to say what any of this was about. I was sworn to secrecy. But I really didn't know that much, and I didn't worry about it because, well, we saw women walking around the campus, but we really didn't know what they were doing. That they came in, a person like Jackie, if she was on campus, she was always on campus. She was always helping out with alumni affairs. She would come in and help welcome the students back or give out mugs to new students. So it was great, but I wanted that story really bad for the Hill magazine, which I edited. So some years we watched it and watched, and we kind of never approached any of these ladies. We didn't even know Jackie was one of them. But over time, we did know that J.J. Willis was. And Kathy Mangan in the English department, she was a good friend of ours. We say, and the daughter-in-law, we said, after things settled down and we knew it was being declassified, we said, can't we talk to JJ? Can we go out and take her to lunch. No, she won't say anything. And I said, okay. And of course, I wasn't going to give up. I'm a stubborn soul, most of you know that. So we did learn about Jackie, and I just saw Mrs. Matthias come in the room. Can you put your hand up? Another one of the ladies of Lewis, and we're so happy that she's here today. And we talked and I think we approached Jackie first. We said, Kim Ashew was the associate editor, did a brilliant job. We said, can we take you to lunch? Just a lunch. We told them what it was about, but we didn't, tell them that we were really going to grill them. So we went out of town because you never want to have a public lunch like that in Westminster. And we took you and Jean Her. Okay. We took you and Jean Her, and we went to lunch, and they opened up to us. And we were so happy. I don't think Kim and I ate anything because our mouths were hanging open. So with that said, I'm going to let Jackie start to tell the story of how she became one of the ladies in Lewis.
I'm sure each of you can remember how you got your job. Well, let me tell you how I got my job as one of the ladies of Lewis. I answered the phone. Hello? Yes, this is Jackie. Oh, Margie. Oh, I'm so glad to hear from you. Oh, you have a part-time job to offer me? Oh, minimum wage. Oh, only about 2 days a month? That sounds good. How about the commute? No commute. Oh, well, that sounds good. What will I be doing? I can't tell you. Oh, but if you're interested, come over to the house tomorrow at 10, and I'll talk to you a little bit more. Of course, I went to Marjorie Zirkle's house at 10 the next morning, expecting to hear the details of the job that she was offering me. Nothing. Are you willing to take this job? Well, what will I be doing, Marjorie? I can't tell you. Well, how do I know if I want to take the job if I don't know what I'm doing? You just have to trust me. Well, knowing Marjorie, I trusted her. And I said, okay, now tell me. Can't tell you until you get top secret clearance. What? Top secret clearance? I'm going to need top secret clearance? Yes, you are. Well, can you imagine the neighbors' questions and looks when they saw Jean Her and me in the days following the FBI agents visiting their homes, inquiring about Jackie Herring and Jean Her? The questions we got: are you planning to move? Oh, you're not going to be teaching anymore? Oh, not substituting even? We deflected those questions as best we could. As soon as the top secret clearance was received, Marjorie said, now, I'd like to show you where you will be working. I had no idea where I would be going. She picked me up, and guess where we went? The campus of Western Maryland College. I'm going to be working at the college. Well, sort of. So into Lewis Hall we went. I had been in Lewis Hall. I had to take a lot of science classes there when I was a home ec major. But I had never been in the basement of Lewis Hall. After she unlocked the door at the top of the steps, you can't imagine the amazement when I saw the vault-like door at the bottom of the steps with a combination on it. Margie pulled out her paper, dialed the combination, and the door swung open. Well, I don't know what I was expecting to see on the inside, but I was shocked. All I saw were tables and chairs and file cabinets. Now, what is so top secret about tables, chairs, and file cabinets? She said, let's walk down this side. The first room was a full kitchen. Well, I had planned to eat at home. I hadn't really planned to eat there. The next room was the bathroom with a decontamination chamber. Well, I really thought that I was rather clean. I didn't know I needed to be decontaminated. And then the next was another vault-like door. That is the one you use if the first one is blocked. I didn't like the idea of a door being blocked. As we were seated around on the other side of the room, there were stacks of cots and cupboards with canned foods. I really hadn't planned to spend the night either. The next room we came to was just a small room with a phone, a dial-type phone. No cell phones at that time, you know. And she said, this is the secure phone room. And on that phone, you will only use the NATO alphabet. You know, Alpha, Bravo, Zulu. Can you imagine having to code your messages that way? I hadn't really thought about having to do that. But after a while, with practice, you learn to do it. Now, the next room had the forerunner of computers. They were called the KL7s. And they were typewriters with a screen. And they were the ones on which we would type messages that would be encrypted and sent to other participating organizations, like the Department of the Interior, the Department of Commerce. And 2 days a month, we would have exercises where we would practice what we would do in case there were a national emergency. And then we came to the next room with another vault-like door with another combination. And in there was a file cabinet that had another combination on it that had all the secret codes and all for our use when we had exercises. And cables and cords that, like which I had never seen. And of course, still had no idea the complexity of what we would be doing. At that point, Margie said, now I will tell you about some of the others who will be working with you. You know them. Irene Young, who was the postmistress at the college, Eloise Enzer, who was the wife of Dr. Enzer, the 5th president of the college, and Jane Willis, who was referred to before as JJ. The first day that we had a real exercise was an enlightening one, because what it really was, it was like an exercise in what was going on in the world. They would send messages telling us what had happened, and we would have to respond by typing messages to the other participating organizations. At one time, we were invited, well, not exactly invited, we were told we really needed to go to Mount St. Mary's College in Emmitsburg for a week-long training. This was a simulated exercise. There was a catastrophe in Washington, and we had to respond. We stayed in the dormitory, and we took turns on the 3 shifts. And let me tell you, it wasn't fun getting up and going to work at 11 o'clock at night and working until 7 or 8 in the morning. However, the meals in the dining hall were scrumptious, and it was a nice change from your day-to-day daily life at home. And it did give us an idea of the complexity of what we were being trained to do. Fortunately, we never had to put into action any of the things which we had learned. We did learn that we were the 3rd level, that if there were a catastrophe in Washington, the top Senate, of course, House of Representatives, of course, the President and so on, would go to the Greenbrier. And the 2nd level would go to the underground bunker up at Camp Ritchie. And then the 3rd level of the Department of Agriculture would come to Lewis Hall on the campus of Western Maryland College. Now, I will say that at one time, when I mentioned that I had been to the Greenbrier, my grandson said to his mother, "I'm sure Mama wore a hairnet and worked in food prep because she was a home ec teacher in college." You can only imagine my delight as I watched him read the article in The Hill when he stated what I really had done at the Greenbrier. Thank you very much for listening to my story.
What a patriot we have on the stage today and in this room. I also just wanted to give you a little background on the building that it was in. It started out apparently in the 1956. There was some rental in the Thompson Hall, which is on campus not far from there, and which served for many years as the college infirmary. So that was rented first. Then the major addition to Lewis Recitation Hall, which dates back to 1914, was built in 1965, and it was named Lewis Hall of Science, and that's when the basement, the sub-basement area was commissioned by the Department of Agriculture, and it was leased. Now, all this time, it was leased by the government until 2000. 34 years, I think that's, if I'm not correct. Major renovations were then made for the new, which is now the Eaton Hall of Science. So that's when they put in a new elevator, and all of us could go to any level that we saw. I wanted to ask Jackie for a minute how this group of women was, well, this so surprised us when we interviewed them, that they never talked to each other about this. And what did they say to their spouses?
I think that we never talked to each other about it because we had been told we couldn't say anything for so long that when we were allowed to say something, we almost forgot how to say it. And then, as far as our husbands were concerned, no one really believes this, but it is true. Both Ober and my husband Bill never asked questions. They knew that we went to the basement of Lewis Hall because if we were to have fallen, they would, and didn't come home, they would know where we were. But they assumed that we did something connected with the college. Bill thought that I was doing alumni work, and Ober thought Jean was still doing something related to the bookstore where she had worked under the tutelage of Charles Fowles. They never asked any more questions, and we never told them anything more.
Thank you. Were you asked to sign anything, an agreement? And were you, if you had let the secret out, What was the threat? Was it such a thing as treason even?
No, Jean and I wondered about that at one time, when they said that, and we did sign for top secret clearance. And Jean and I said one time, well, suppose we slipped and said something. I wonder what would happen, but we were so afraid to even think about it that we just made sure that we didn't say anything or slip and make any remarks at all. And no one questioned, even our friends didn't question us going to the college because I had graduated from there, and Jean had worked in the bookstore there, and Ober had graduated from the college. So they assumed we were just doing college-related.
And when you went on these exercises at other places, did you talk among, were there all women there being trained, or were there others? And did you have any relationship with them?
When we went to Mount St. Mary's, we met Casper Weinberg, who came up and directed the exercise. There were men and women from the other departments that participated in the exercises. And we did meet some of the people from the Department of Agriculture in Washington. And then when, in 2000, when all this was declassified, we were invited to Washington, had a group picture taken, entertained, and were thanked for our service.
And you never got a raise? You know, after doing this story, I just had to go to Greenbrier. So of course a lot of people know about Greenbrier and the bunkers that are there. I just thought you would be interested in a few facts about that, and you can go and tour there yourself. And I would highly advise it. It's absolutely very interesting. I also met the gentleman that does the tours, is very knowledgeable. And after going there, I actually gave him my card, took his card, and sent him a copy of the article, and he was much interested too. So once you learn a little about secrets, it just takes you, you become more curious and you really want to learn more. So there's an awful lot of information on the internet now because of the declassification. The Greenbrier, it was under Eisenhower that was a nuclear bunker. It was for all the members of Congress, and it began in 1957. It took $14 million. It was completed in October 1962. Does anybody remember what happened shortly after that? It was the Cuban Missile Crisis. So I think that was probably the closest time in contemporary history that we worried about nuclear war. The bunker itself is buried 720 feet underground. It's a 2-level facility, roughly the size of 2 football fields on top of another. And it has a large exhibition hall, which was going to be for the joint sessions of Congress, 2 small auditoriums, the 440 seat for the House and 130 seat for the Senate. They also had a dining room, a hospital, an operating room, pharmacy. Every member of Congress had to give their whatever drugs they were on, and that was refilled every year this was in operation, and including your eyeglasses. There was 18 dormitories to house 60 people each in metal bunk beds. I can't imagine that would ever work today. Can you imagine that? It also had television, radio, and communications facilities. And the nuclear bunker for Supreme Court was created in Grove Park Inn in Asheville, if any of you have been there before. So this was all, the Greenbrier was a guarded secret, and until 1992, when the Washington Post reporter revealed its existence in the newspaper, and then it was declassified shortly after that. Tours began for the Greenbrier guests in 1995, and it's now expanded to the public in 2006. So these are stories in our history. Who knew they were in your own backyard? I want to thank this patriot, and also over there, certainly Mrs. Matthias, the women who did this. I'm not sure I would have been able to, well, I've kept all their secrets. We became Fort Knox in our office when we changed the name. I'm just saying. But nevertheless, Jackie has done a tremendous service for coming here today to share this story. And I think it's time for you to ask a question or two. Please, you can stand where you're at, but speak loudly. Who would like to go first? Yes.
I started at McDaniel College in 1972, and I have this very vivid memory. The story started spreading that there was something under Lewis. And in 1972, I'm sure everybody in this room remembers, the military was not real popular. Students were up in arms. So Dr. John, who was in his first year, called an assembly in Alumni Hall. And he told us that indeed it was true. There was something under Lewis, but he was getting rid of it. And it wouldn't be there anymore. And we were with duties and we went back to our dorm room and said, well, we took care of that, didn't we? For those who know me, showing up for that auditorium for that event was a no-brainer. I had to see what was going on.
There were lots of, rumors would just kind of come up and down and periodically. I didn't know that story, so thank you for sharing that. And I'm sure when he got back to his desk, somebody called Dr. John and says, we're going to lose that rental money. I haven't seen that happen before to another vice president. More questions? Yes.
When you went from Wheat to Emmitsburg, what did your husband think then? I mean, it wasn't just being in the college, but being in college.
When you went to Emmitsburg overnight, what did you say to your husband?
Can you repeat it on mic?
That's a good question. Jean and I discussed what were we going to tell Bill and Ober. And we told them that we needed to go relating to our work at the college. And they bought it.
Yes.
Now these pay stubs and W-2 forms, like, how did you just keep it a secret, like, that you weren't getting paid by the government?
So how did you do your taxes when the W-2 form came in?
Took them to the accountant and always said, I don't understand taxes, so just fill out the form.
Other questions? Yes, sir.
Do you think that you who were involved in this were recruited because of your association with the college, so it would provide you with a good cover support?
Well, the question is, how did they get recruited? Let me start, and then I'll hand it over to Jackie. When I came to the college, there was a gentleman, Colonel Stoney Willis, Eugene Willis, and he's in the history book. And actually, if you want to read a lot more about all of the college history, our author is here today, Dr. James Leitner, and he would be happy to tell you how to get a copy. Although there's like 2 lines about this whole thing. But Stoney Willis was a colonel. He was retired. He was in charge of buildings and grounds at the college and had a really strong reputation as a career officer. I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty certain that he was approached. You have to also understand, we've always had a ROTC unit on the college. I think they recently, 100 years, 100 years. So we were, first of all, we're close to Washington. In some ways, a bedroom community of Washington. We had this high-standing, reputed military officer in the staff, and he was in charge of buildings and grounds, and also this very reputable ROTC unit. And maybe Jackie, do you have any more to add to that? Yeah, and so Jane Willis was married to Stoney. We all called him Stoney. His son was Pebble. Don't ask me to explain that. There's a lot of nicknames in the Western Maryland College family, as you well know. Is Matthias, your daughter is? No, yes. But I just think it was a great place to have something like this. And it did bring money into the coffers, because you were still working there in 2000?
We weren't actually working, we were.
On call.
That's when it was, yes,
Yeah.
it was
On call,
declassified
yeah.
then.
That's a long time, because why a lot of these bunkers are no longer effective, there would have to be response within minutes. And that's not going to happen in places like that were being used and rented by the government then. But we'll see. Yes.
Did you continue to work only 2 days a month your whole career? Or?
The entire time that we were employed there, yes, we worked 2 days a month. And one thing I think I failed to mention, the doors, the 2 doors, had to be checked daily. And Marjorie was very kind to those who lived on the other end of town. Those of us who lived on the west end of town, closer to the college, were asked to do it. And every day for 2 weeks, about every 2 months, you went over and checked the doors to make sure that they were locked.
If you read some of the literature, the books out there about women photographers, many of them were recruited from the Seven Sisters institutions, such as Radcliffe. There's a book out, you can read about that. And these were women that had performed very well in their mathematics program. I will say that while I was at the college, we had many students recruited by NSA. And I once asked a professor in the math program, I said, and what was frustrating, what I wanted to know is because we could never write about it. They all had clearance and they couldn't talk to us. So he finally told me that they taught a particular high-level algebra class. And that really prepared their students for the kind of work that NSA wanted them to do once they graduated. And I found that very curious. We finally did get 1 or 2 students to be able to be interviewed, but we went through a lot of clearances, and actually the article had to go back to NSA and be approved before we could publish it. Oh, I'm sorry.
When did you finally tell Bill?
Finally told Bill when they said that it was declassified. When we went to Washington and the head of the Department of Agriculture said, ladies, it is a secret, no more. And so came home and Jean and I said, we will tell Bill and Oprah. We took them out to dinner that night and we told them what we had been doing. And I have to admit that Bill said to me later, I thought that maybe there was something different going on, but how did you keep it from me this long?
Did he ever trust you again?
I think I would take, which amendment is it that I can take?
Are there other questions? should have, I was there, we should have arranged to have a tour. You know, it was taken up and moved because we wanted that space for the new science center. But it took quite a lot of work to get those vaults out of there. You can imagine how large they were. In the back, I see a hand. Oh, I'm sorry, yes? Go ahead, whoever is saying so. Yes.
Do you and Jackie think that this is going on now in places?
Well, I'll speak first, and then I'll give it to Jackie. I'm not a person that runs to every conspiracy theory, and in fact, I think a lot of those individuals are hurting our democracy. So, but I do believe that situations do call for very special care in making sure that not only we as citizens are safe, but also how to protect certain secrets.
I do agree with that there are certain things that need to be protected for the good of the population as a whole.
I would say don't rely on the internet for your information or Facebook. Well, we have a few more minutes, but maybe you want to get her autograph. And if we could bring Mrs. Matthias up, it would be great to get a picture of these two ladies of Lewis. Thank you for being here.